Okay, the next thing on my list is Clover Choco. I should mention about Clover Choco, they do make it in other colors. I would like to discourage you against the other colors because I've used other colors such as pink, blue, yellow, they have silver, and those colors for whatever reason did not, the chalk is supposed to wipe away from your fabric when you're done marking, and for some reason the other colors don't wipe away completely. So I recommend only the white, and it's great for two things. One is for marking on dark fabrics. It has a little wheel which as it moves it dispenses the chalk, and it only goes in one direction, so if you're trying to use it and it's not moving, that means wrong direction, just swap it over to the other side. As you can see, marked, and then it'll wipe away, not all immediately, but you know, certainly over time. Second thing for marking besides dark fabrics, if you're marking anything on the right side of the bag, basically anything that might be seen in the finished bag, you always want to use, I recommend using either Clover Choco or another chalk, because you don't want to have any markings that you can see when the bag is finished. So say for instance I'm marking placement for handle pieces, I'll use the Clover Choco for the markings of the handles. I'll sew my handles in place, and then when the bag's done, all this will just brush away. Number 3 on my list is friction pens, and I use friction pens for marking kind of like the Clover Choco, but for me personally, when I'm cutting out my pattern pieces, I like to draw my pattern pieces on the wrong side of the fabric. So I'll use the friction pens for, say I need a rectangle, I need to cut that out, so I'll mark the rectangle on the wrong side of the fabric. And then I know a lot of people like to use a rotary cutter. I just, like I mentioned I think it was last week, I'm a big fan of just marking and cutting out with scissors. And so I'll just mark on the wrong side of the fabric. I would like to mention, let me get my iron heated up. If you're marking on the right side of the fabric, I recommend using the Clover Choco instead. While the friction pens do erase with the heat of an iron, and let me get this marked up with some markings from my friction pens, and these are kind of older, so they're, I guess, a little bit weaker right now. But I recommend not using this on the right side of the fabric, because even though the heat of the iron, I need to heat this up a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Even though the iron will remove it, and you can kind of, I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can. So even though the heat of the iron did remove the markings, you can kind of see like a ghostly little shadow. So friction pens are great, but I really only use them on the wrong side of the fabric because of that reason, those little ghostly lines. You don't want those showing up when the bag is finished. And I've heard stories from friends that it also happens sometimes when it's super cold outside, the markings will just sort of reappear similar to that.
I'm Sarah Lawson. Make sure to follow for more of my sewing adventures.